Trump is bad on China and everyone knows it. His own party knows it, Xi Jinping knows it, even Chinese netizens know it. That's why they call him Comrade Build the Nation, because his policy is so bad it actually helps build China. Even in a historically divided political environment, Trump is notably terrible. When Washington woke up to the fact that China's rise wasn't harmless and that it's actually the only country that can challenge American hegemony, it formed a rare bipartisan consensus that Chinese competition needs to be dealt with seriously. After all, only with China is there a very real risk that the US might be surpassed technologically, dependent economically, or defeated militarily. And while Trump's trade war might have helped wake Washington up to this reality, when it came to taking decisive action in the critical decade of competition, Trump continued to fall short. He seemed so determined to completely waste valuable time and leverage throughout his time in office that he opposed his own party, staff, and advisors on his quest to be as bad on American industry, bad on defense, bad on technological security, and bad on human rights as possible. All of this, of course, was great for the CCP. Rush Doshi wrote a great article going over the mountain of Trump-era policy flops and wasted opportunities, which was my inspiration for this video, so let's just run down the list. One of the most pressing issues right now in the US is defense. Washington knows that to maintain its position, the US needs to do things like defend its allies, which is why the $95 billion aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan passed earlier this year with overwhelming bipartisan consensus. On the other hand, Trump apparently disagrees with supporting American allies with valuable insights such as, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? Trump recalled another country's leader asking him when he was president. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. This is the kind of behavior that isolated the US internationally and turned away previously strong American allies during Trump's term in office, all the while encouraging Russian aggression. On Taiwan, Trump says that they stole our chips and don't give us anything, so they should probably pay us for defense too. As with Russia, these are the kinds of comments that embolden an aggressive China. I guess for Trump, protecting democracies worldwide just isn't important enough to spend money on, which, given what he thinks about democracy at home, is not a surprise. But I'm sure autocracies like China and Russia would love a world where they can aggress on democracies as much as they want without having to worry about American defense. Then there's the issue of what's supposedly a huge amount of Trump's appeal, reindustrializing the United States and bringing jobs back from China. It's ironic then that his policy seems like it actively opposes Americans because Trump was happy to let China continue unfair trade practices and squander literally all of the leverage he won with China as long as it meant he could get a deal ahead of the 2020 election. The deal he made, by the way, was that Chinese manufactured products could continue to be sold in the US as long as they brought American commodities, largely oil. Surprise, surprise, Chinese crap continues to be sold in the US, while on the other hand, the CCP did not meet a single outlined target for American energy imports. If you're wondering if this benefited Americans in any way, shape, or form, the answer is no. And it's exactly this kind of deal that has led to the deindustrialization of the United States that Trump was supposedly so against. More tariffs is also the only concept of a plan that Trump has deigned to share with us, so if it goes anything like his last deals with China, I have zero confidence that a second Trump term would get the USA anything else but accelerated decline. And if you think that policy blunder was bad, let's look at the mess Trump made of technological security. Both parties are rightly worried about the threat of PRC cyber attacks and espionage. So was Trump's administration when in 2018 it placed export controls against ZTE, a Chinese state-owned telecom company, for using American materials to make their products that they would then ship to sanctioned countries like Iran and North Korea. Until Trump came out against his own administration, tweeting that President Xi of China and I are working together to give massive Chinese phone company ZTE a way to get back into business fast. Too many jobs in China lost. Apparently, Trump was more concerned with jobs lost for Chinese workers than he was with American components making their way to Iran and North Korea. As Marco Rubio, the apparent voice of reason in this situation, replied, "Problem with ZTE isn't jobs and trade, it's national security and espionage." Yeah. Eventually, Trump ended up lifting the ZTE controls in exchange for China buying commodities to help him politically, strikingly similar to the deal that he would later make in 2020, which we just discussed. Now, the pressing issue both parties are worried about is what it could mean for national security that TikTok has the data of 170 million Americans. Well, not Trump, who says that he's for TikTok. Could this be because of the several billionaire Trump donors with a stake in TikTok? I guess we'll never know. On the technology front, Chinese access to advanced chips is another huge concern, but that's 2 times now that we've seen Trump supposedly have a super strong opinion about China and then completely flip to earn political points. First with ZTE, then his 2020 export deal. Why should we bet on Trump suddenly having strong convictions now? Who's to say we won't get another tweet next year saying, President Xi and I are working to give a massive Chinese chip company a way to get back into business after he's elected. The CCP has a miserable human rights record. On this, both Democrats and Republicans are in agreement. Trump, once again, is not. Not when it comes to Hong Kong, Tiananmen Square, or Xinjiang, where Trump seems to have anywhere from a level of admiration to support of the CCP's human rights atrocities. Back in 1990, a year after the Tiananmen massacre, Trump commented that, when the students poured into Tiananmen Square, the Chinese government almost blew it. Then they were vicious, they were horrible, but they put it down with strength. That shows you the power of strength. Our country is right now perceived as weak, as being spit on by the rest of the world. Then, during his administration, according to Bolton, at the opening dinner of the Osaka G20 meeting in June 2019, with only interpreters present, Xi had explained to Trump why he was basically building concentration camps in Xinjiang. According to our interpreter, Trump said that Xi should go on ahead with building the camps, which Trump thought was exactly the right thing to do. The National Security Council's top Asia staffer, Matthew Pottinger, told me that Trump said something very similar during his November 2017 trip to China. Wow, that sounds like a consistent belief he has. I'm guessing he thinks that building camps is an excellent show of strength. And when it comes to defending human rights in Hong Kong, during a private phone call in June 2019, President Donald Trump promised Chinese President Xi Jinping that the U.S. would remain quiet on pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong while trade talks continued. In November of that same year, Trump would say in a Fox News interview that, "We have to stand with Hong Kong, but I'm also standing with President Xi," and that he's a friend of mine, apparently showing willingness to veto the bipartisan Hong Kong sanctions. I guess Trump respected the way that Xi put those democracy protests down with strength, too. Trump would eventually sign on to the Hong Kong sanctions in 2020, but this kind of waffling on human rights is not the stance that I want to be seeing from an American president. Trump is bad on China. For all of his bluster, he's flip-flopped and even shown China's support in critical issues such as industry, defense, technological security, and human rights. But he's been pushed to change his mind before. For example, when he eventually agreed to sign on to the Hong Kong sanctions. Maybe in a second Trump term, his staff could hold back some of his worst impulses. Yeah, except that after 2020, there's nobody left on Trump's team willing to be even remotely critical of him. It should be an obvious red flag that if even his former VP is refusing to endorse him, Trump's would-be cabinet is now only yes men who'll likely make no effort to redirect him whatsoever. It's because of Trump's first term that China already thinks the US is in decline. It's more likely than not that a second term for Comrade Build the Nation would only make China great again.